Hey, 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 happy 2026. It's Chanel with daughters. Let's talk about it. So, happy new year to everybody. 2026, we're here. And just kind of took a break from doing the podcast just as I kind of spent some time trying to be intentional about what I want my year to look like. And, if you've been listening for a while, if you know me, you know that I have a word of the year and a scripture of the year, or maybe two. And so just kind of trying to be intentional to just pull back a little bit so that I can clearly hear what I think those things are and how I need to incorporate them into every day and into the year throughout. And so this podcast episode is kind of about that, about just being intentional. And honestly, I just have a question for you. Like, what do you want your 2026 to look like? What do you want your 2026 to focus on? What are some goals or a goal that you just want to make sure you accomplish this year? And how do you want people to support you in doing that? And that's kind of the question that I have for myself as well. What do I want this year to look like? And so I will go ahead and actually just share some of the quotes from my calendar, because as you know, I do a calendar. I have a planner and it has different quotes throughout the year, and they have upped the ante this year. So there is like a quote for each week for this calendar and some questions, I think, for the month. And so one of the questions is, what's a change you want to make this year that feels doable? How can you start making that change today? What a question, actually, for that, because that's loaded, is what I would say. And I think a change that I would want to make this year is, I feel like rest is a lot of times the thing, but I do find myself doing a good bit, and it's doable to choose to rest. And so being intentional and putting rest on the calendar, I think, will be part of that. I want to get back to reading more. Since I've been in school, I just don't get the time to read. Most of what I read is academic, and that works because I like to read, but I'm not like doing anything that's like for like me, like I guess like mentally, emotionally, just like or leisurely. Like for me, reading is relaxing. And so if when I'm reading for school, even though I might like it, that's not like a leisure read. And so actually something I want to incorporate this year is reading my books, but being more intentional in what I read. So like maybe saying, okay, the month of January, I want to read a book on finances, marriage, and just personal growth. Boom. And then February, maybe a book on kindness and something that is heavy in like Bible study type. And boom, that's going to be February. And I'm just off the cuff saying this, but I know that that's something that I do want to incorporate and something that is doable. And so since this is a later podcast in the month, or later in the month, because this is probably going to be released at the end of January or early February, I want to go ahead and share some of the quotes that have been posed in my planner so far. So in the coming year, prioritize progress over perfection, and you'll find success along the way. And I truly do believe that. Like, so many of us hesitate to get started because the conditions aren't perfect. And so sometimes we either never get started, or it takes way too long. And then we see, unfortunately, somebody else who just did it, who just made it happen, and kind of look at it like, man, we should have done that. Like, or I should have jumped on that. And so, get started, right? Have that support corner who can help you navigate some things, but go ahead and get started. And I think that's what's been really cool so far about this year is, normally I'm just like putting off prep for the daughters conference, like publicly, like I'm preparing in private, but publicly. And so if you're listening, go and register for the daughters conference this year, this June 2026. On Saturday. It is officially up and ready for registration. So hop on it. Another quote was, today's choices shape tomorrow's reality. And I do believe that the choices we make today will shape the reality we live in tomorrow. That the choice that I make to maybe work myself to the bone will affect my energy levels for tomorrow. That the choices that I make eating wise will affect some things for tomorrow. So, yeah, I truly believe that. Another quote, failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the journey towards it. Yes, it absolutely is. Failure is just part of the process of being successful. And you can listen to any entrepreneur, any quote unquote successful entrepreneur. You can look at people in the past and they will tell you they failed 999 times and it was the 1,000th time that worked. And people don't see the 999 times, but they did happen. And so I think that's really encouraging. Like, yeah, failure, as they say, isn't fatal. It isn't final, but it is a part of success. And be willing to fail. And that's something that I struggle with. There's so many things that I really just don't attempt because I don't want to fail at it. Like I don't want to be bad at it. And that was even as a kid growing up, like softball. Like, why do I hate baseball and softball? Well, honestly, just because I wasn't good at it. Like they're actually very difficult sports and to me still a little boring, but I just don't like them because I wasn't good at it. Because I failed at it. And that's not a good reason to not like something just because I wasn't good at it. But the Lord is continuing to smooth me out and smooth me out and soften those sharp places of pride like that. And starve your distractions and feed your focus. Starve your distractions and feed your focus. And it's something that I actually have a reminder of every day on my phone to avoid the distractions, but allow the interruptions. And what that means to me is that, that it has a spiritual application for me, because I think it's so easy to have my plans and have my schedule and be on the go and not want to be interrupted in what I have planned to do. And I often feel like God is saying, like, no, like I have things for you to do and they don't fall in line with what you have planned, but my plan is greater than yours. And so this was years ago. I felt like he was saying, yes, like avoid the distractions, avoid the things that pull your attention away from me and get your focus off of me, but allow interruptions, allow holy interruptions to where conversations can happen and take place that point people to me. At the end of the day, yes, you are a teacher and you got lesson plans and you got curriculum you need to get covered. But if even in the middle of that lesson, there's a question that a student has in relation to me, you need to allow that interruption to take place because divine revelation could be taking place. And it was in small group this past weekend, and someone was saying they were on their way to an appointment, and then there was a person whose car had been towed, and she just said, I'm going to write you a check. Here you go here, get it paid for, and took care of it that way. And it just made me smile because I said, you know what, actually, you were on the way to an appointment. It wasn't the appointment you thought you had in the books, but it was another appointment that you were on the way to. And I feel like that just kind of resonated with me, like, live your life like with an appointment on the way to an appointment. Like, live your life knowing that there might be something on your calendar, but there might be something along the way that you have an appointment for that you don't even realize. And then the last quote for January, we can't always control what is going on, but we can always keep choosing kindness. And honestly, I think that quote needs its own podcast. And so I'm going to leave it right there. And if you don't hear a podcast on that quote, please email, text, call, whatever, to make sure that I come back to that, because I think that that's something that I am going to need to sit still with, and something that I hope you feel encouraged to sit still with. And so, happy 2026. I want to encourage you to be still and, ask God for a word of the year. Ask God for verses of the year. Ask God for his goals and plans. I think that the Lord does love when we plan. What I think is also true is that our plans don't trump his. So I believe that God totally is all for planning in order, but those plans in that order cannot get in the way of his plans in the order that he wants things to be in. And I am so grateful for God's grace that even though I get that wrong, he still loves me into getting it right. And so be encouraged. New year, new opportunities. Till next time. You've been listening to the Daughter's Diary podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. For more information, you can visit our website at www.achanelmore.com. There, you'll find blogs, a store, more podcasts, and tips. Thank you for your time.